Hi, I'm James Harney and welcome to Extra. Please hit the like button for all future content. On today's show, I'm joined by Adam Murray, Mr. Collins, and Mr. Briggs to look at the hurling championship so far. I suppose to start off with Munster with Limerick versus Clare in the first game. Like, get your pins on that, Mr. Briggs, first.
Yeah, look, it turned out to be an absolute massacre, and in the end, I suppose there was a couple of things very interesting to me, which were number one, number of scores, 36 points for Limerick, was it 122, 123 for Clare, but like it was, I suppose, the Tony Kelly show, and very interesting was the fact that Limerick decided not to bother man marking Tony Kelly, even though he scored again and again and again. And that's fine when you're confident that you're going to win by, a big cricket score. But I remember Waterford did the same thing last year in the first year down in Welsh Park. I think Tony Kelly got 5 points and Waterford only scored 13 and Clare only scored 14. So, if there is one thing that Limerick might have to look at in the future, it's that one. But saying that, like the awesome display Limerick would probably talk more about the weekend again. I mean, it really underlined their physical conditioning is phenomenal. And for the first day out to score 36 points, I was blown away by how good they were.
I'll get an opinion off you now, Adam.
Well, I suppose going into the match, everyone was tipping Limerick or predicting that Limerick would win, but probably not in the fashion that they did in the end. But Clare were disappointed enough now. They didn't have Tony Kelly. I think he got something like 17 points or something, but they had no real target man inside. Like, I know they're missing John Conlon and Duggan, but like they didn't really have any threat inside. Shane O'Donnell was quite enough, and I'm sure Limerick just hurled them off the field basically and dominated really.
And you, Mr. Collins.
Well, just picking up on what Adam said there, there's Clare were missing Condon and Duggan, and that's two of their biggest men and their ball winners. And the way hurling has gone at the moment, you have to have big men and ball winners. And we'll see that when we talk about Cork and we talk about Tipperary at the weekend as well, in that if you don't have big, strong physical men in the half-forward line, especially that can win ball, you're going to be starved there then. And the like Shane O'Donnell then aren't going to get on the ball because, they won't win a lot of hard ball in these conditions. They might do it above in summer on a lightning fast field, but this is more like winter hurling now at the moment, and the real zip isn't on the ball. I think that's why Limerick are so difficult to beat at the moment, because they're so big physically, and that's their primary strength, as well as the fact that they're serious hurlers. But as the physicality of them is the X factor, I think.
Yeah, they were good at half time, Clare, but then Limerick came out and I think they scored was the first 4 points of the second half, and Grode Hegarty took on to a new level then. The half forward line in Limerick is probably best in the country, and it's not really stoppable once they get going anyway.
But they don't play like traditional half forwards. Like, funnily enough, even if they did play like a traditional half forward, I still think they'd be awesome. But it's the fact that they're so big, but they move back into the half back line of the other team. And then when they win that ball, they play in almost like Barcelona tiki-taki. There's a quick pass outside. There's another quick pass to it. Maybe O'Donnell in the middle of the field. And of course, we'll probably touch on it again, but the position then of Keane Lynch, who was playing centre forward against Tipperary, and there's a quick transfer out to him, and all of a sudden, one of the best players in Ireland is running at you, and he's got 20 yards of space. And it's incredibly hard to stop. And they're just I've rarely seen big men with the athleticism, the fitness levels, and the hurling skills that I've seen those three guys.
It must be Paul Kinnerk is the X factor there, really. But their touch and their ability to win the ball in the rucks, and we've seen it last year and we've seen it in their games this year. Their ability to pick a ball up fast, whether chopping down on it or just a rolling lift or whatever. But I mean, their percentage of possession that comes out of those rucks is serious for such big men. Gerard Hegarty is unbelievable, his throw skills, and Keane Lynch, is well known for it as well there, his ability to chop down the ball and take it up and like their skill level is just phenomenal.
Yeah, I think we'll move on to the Waterford Cork match now. Collins, I'd like to get your perspective as a Cork man, the performance first.
Yeah, I was really looking forward to this one. All right, James. Yeah, as a Cork man, you couldn't be but absolutely disgusted with Cork's performance last year. No, I mean, it's something we often talk about it there, myself and Shane there over the years. You know, I've said that, you know, Cork had a good team back in the 03, 04 there, that team that won a few All-Irelands. And there was a lot of small guys like Ben and Jory and Jodine, but Tom Kinney, but they were full of running, like they were hugely athletic and fast, and they were able to play a running game through defences. And, you know, the game has evolved now and it's moved on. And like all the teams have gone for bigger, more physical men. And like people talked about the size of Galway there before when they won the All-Ireland 2 or 3 years ago, like with a huge team altogether. And I remember going up to Leinster final between Galway and Kilkenny, and Kilkenny were every bit as big as them. And you look at the size of Limerick there now, and we're talking about Cork, like, but Cork haven't moved on at all in terms of picking physical big men that can win their own ball, and that's been Cork's weakness there up front in the last few years. They can't win primary possession when they need to, and you know, Conor Lehan there is like a lovely player and everything, and you know, Cadigan there, Alan up front, like, you know, class player in dry ground and that, but like those players struggle there to win primary possession. And I suppose the other thing we've said about Cork over the years there is, like, Cork Hurling Championship has gone very tippy-tappy. The physicality, the way it's being refereed, the physicality has gone out of it. And the players that are coming in there and making their, you know, way onto the Cork panel there, like Jack O'Connor, he came on there as a sub, no, not the presenter from school that was on there lately, but he came on there for Cork the last day, and we saw him playing in a challenge match there against Abbeyside there, and during the summer, like, and I mean, he's a class player again, but he's another player that's in the same mold of small and quick and skillful. But I suppose, as Kevin Heffernan said back in the 70s, like a good big fella is better to you than a good small fella. And, you know, I think Cork need to look at the way the game is being refereed in the county and look at the physicality, and they need to change and go for bigger, more physical ball-winning players if they want to be back contesting at the top level.
Caleb Lyons at 1-2, Mr. Briggs. What's your opinion on how he played?
Yeah, I'll come back to that in 1 second. I just wanted to talk, like what Jeff was saying there. People, like, I remember back, say, in Cork in 04, 05 when Donal O'Grady was manager, and then it went on, I can't even remember, he went on to manage Limerick afterwards. But, like, yeah, they had phenomenal hurlers in Ben and Jerry and small guys. But, like, their half-forward line consisted of Timmy McCarthy, Niall McCarthy, right, who were, like, people used to be giving out yards about Timmy McCarthy going, sure, he's only a big lump. What does he do? But, like, Donal O'Grady was no fool. And then to the extra yard in to go on and win the All-Ireland, they brought back Brian Corcoran, another huge man. So actually their forward line consisted of 3 massive ball winners, right? And these things haven't changed over time. Now, like, we played Blackrock. We played Blackrock in the summer, and like for the Waterford in their 20s. I've seen Blackrock over the last number of years, and they're the first thing to look at them. They're absolutely huge. How many Blackrock men were on the Cork team the last day, Jeff?
None on the panel, I'd say.
None on the panel. Like, so they're playing a game where they can mix it. You know, they're big physical men. They're men coming off the shoulder. They're incredibly hard to stop. And they kind of ran through Cork this year. They were excellent in any of the games I saw them. Like, none of them on the panel. Now, like, I go back to Cork and I go, right, these are guys who were phenomenal hurlers. But, like, how many times do you go back to the well to the same guys again and again and again? And, like, you expect a different result. You need ball winners. And, like, I'm going to be saying the exact same thing we'll talk about Tip later on, like, who they started at the weekend. No ball winners. And you cannot expect, like, look, I guarantee you take Keane Lynch and you put him in that Cork team. Yeah, he'd be a good hurler. But, like, he can only do so much himself. like that. Mark Coleman's an excellent hurler. Darragh Fitzgibbon's an excellent hurler. But like, you need big men around to win simple primary ball, to give it off, and then all the other guys can play around.
And I'll just say the two of the guys you mentioned there, Shane, that were often criticised for Cork was Timmy McCarthy and Niall Mack, but I'd say both of them won man of the match in All Ireland finals that Cork won, so just to point out the importance of the ball winner when it comes down to it.
And it probably didn't help with Owen Cadigan and Aidan Welsh being injured, two of the probably biggest men on the Cork team.
Yeah, especially Aidan Welsh, because Aidan Welsh's role on the team is to win puckouts. Like, he's the target man for the puckouts. And a bit like, I suppose, Seamus Prendergast did that role for Waterford for so many years, just like, even when he wasn't that mobile towards the end, like, he was still a go-to guy for puckouts. And, when he was gone, I think, Cork really, really struggled up front, like, because what's his name there won or scored. Shane Kingston scored 4 points from play, but like, he's not, and he's a big man, but he's not a great ball winner at the same time. Like, he loses a lot of ball, like, and like Aidan Welsh probably won't score more than 1 or 2 points, like, but he will stop the likes of Calum Lyons from catching puckouts, like, and scoring a goal and 2 points from wing back. And that's the importance of the big man in the half forward line.
And say, Adam.
No, but you were saying they're missing Welch in the half forward line for the buckets, but it showed Deberka and Calum Lyons were winning every ball. They were just pucking down top of them at one stage. And I think Deberka was probably free for a good bit in the second half. And every time they just puck ball on top of him, and he was delighted with that. Like, he was driving out and picking out passes. And just on what you were saying about Cork, they don't have enough ball winners. They're probably one of the most skillful teams we probably would have seen. Like Horgan, we all know how good his striking is and his touch and all that. But like, if you saw fellas like playing for Kilkenny back when they were winning All Irelands and all, they had fellas who were tough and win the ball, like, and maybe lay it off to the likes of Shefflin or all them fellas. But Cork just don't seem to have it at the moment. Just too much arson around it, I'd say.
Yeah, they need to reevaluate, the way the game is played, like, because you're not going to beat a Limerick or a Galway or a Kilkenny with small players. I mean, the game has moved on. Like, I mean, they've got big men that are superb athletes as well. They're fast, and I mean, Cork is either going to have to learn or relinquish our role as one of the big three teams in the country, like, in hurling. So, how many years it's going to go on for, I don't know. I mean, we've been saying this, Shane, down in school we must be 5 or 6 years talking about it now. And, we're still doing it over and over again.
I actually think, like, the biggest indictment of Cork at the weekend, apart from, well, obviously, look, the ball winners is a huge thing. But like, the biggest indictment for me was the fact that I sat and I watched, say, the Waterford game, and I watched the Wexford game, and I actually thought to myself that the way the game is going, that the sweeper is now null and void, and that the way teams are playing, you could easily avoid the sweeper sitting in the pocket. But like, Cork, you talk about Cork, and we all know they're great stickmen. How many times, Adam said it there, how many times did they happen to find Ty Deberka on his own, Calum Lyons on his own? They were just, like, they were striking balls, there was no heads up hurling, they weren't looking for 30-yard balls to a man's hand, and like, this was meat and drink to Waterford all day, because, as we all know, look, when it comes to loose ball and that type of sweeper role, Ty Deberka is probably one of the best in the country. And like, Calum, like I said here last week, Calum is the most phenomenal hurler I've ever seen in school to deliver a ball once it's in his hand. Like, we're talking about top class players here. Like, what are they going to do when they get the ball in their hand? They're going to get their heads up, they're going to look. But like, at one stage I saw Joyce, I think it was Stephen Bennett came out, won a ball. Joyce was 2 yards off him. Bennett was heading out the field away from goal, and Joyce's first instinct was, I'm going to drop back 5 yards. So all of a sudden now there was 5 or 6, 7, 8, 9 yards between them. Stephen Bennett just looked up and he expected pressure, and there was literally nobody around him. And like, you know for a fact, if you're playing Limerick, Jeremy Burns will be in your face. Like, if you're playing Waterford, like Tig, Caleb Lyons, like Shane Fives, these lads will be in your face the second you win the ball. I just thought, like, it was absolutely scurrilous from Cork. It was heartless stuff. And to be honest with you, like, that's going to knock some stuff out of them over. Like, it's going to take an awful lot to pick themselves up. And because they're playing a very physical team now in Dublin.
And just
there's a
just
few
on-
teams going to have to pick themselves off the deck after the first week of the championship.
Just on we're kind of slating Cork there, but in fairness, Waterford didn't really let them play. Like, they were beating them all over the field, and we're saying Cork were getting caught up in the sweeper a lot, but Waterford avoided the spare man a lot, and ball into Hutchison and Stephen Bennett inside was top class. Like.
And like, I know he's my own club mate, but like, geez, I thought like Prunty, if Waterford had Prunty 15, 20 years ago in the Ken McGrath era, I actually think they could have won the All-Ireland, because he's the glue that holds everything together back there, and that any filthy ball that drops 10 yards out, he's invariably big, strong man, picks and goes, and then just hand passes out, quick strike pass out, and he's back in position again. He's a really, really like top class defender first, and a really good hurler as well. So I mean, look, I think I agree with you, Adam, and I think they can get better, because I think the more game time they get, like Neil Montgomery is back as well. I know he's my club again, but like, he's big, he's strong, he's quick. Those are the type of players that Cahill obviously likes, and they fit the system perfectly. And it's the first time in a long time where I actually looked at the Waterford system and thought, do you know what? This is really suiting the players. It's a really good brand of hurling to watch. And, you know, can they go somewhere from here? But the problem is that maybe Limerick just do it a bit better.
Yeah, Austin Gleeson had another red card scare. Well, can I get your opinions on that? It was a red card, and should he have deserved it? And
Well, I saw a little dig kind of after the ball went away, but Asher, you're not supposed to do it, but I was first straight in front of the linesman as well. I don't know how I wasn't caught doing it, but I was dirty enough, and if he was caught doing it, he probably would have got the line for striking a fence. But look, it worked out for us in the end, anyway.
But is that the end of it, I wonder, or will it be reviewed?
I think it's under review currently, or it's getting under review. And I don't know when they're coming out with it, but he could be getting banned for the Munster final against Limerick. Yeah.
It depends on what the rest.
If he's left get away with it.
From reading on yesterday's paper, it depends on what the referee saw and what he didn't say, and retrospectively what he believes the punishment should be. Look, he's such a gifted player, and I suppose when you're living on the edge, Tommy Welch from Kilkenny was something similar. The only thing I think about Tommy Welch was maybe he was a bit cuter with it at times. Look, it's the butt of the hurley. He's lucky he didn't get seen. To me, look, it's a yellow card. To be honest, after Billy Welch was on here last week, I was actually advocating the centre back should have done the exact same thing to him when he was talking about Cop-on playing a sweeper. So, like, look, to me, a yellow card would have been enough, and leave it off, because like we don't want to see the game. We don't want to see the game descend into, you know, madness of just being like lads, you know, being sent off willy nilly for this and that. So look, I'd be happy enough if it was a yellow.
I suppose we'll move on to the Limerick and Tip game over the weekend as well. But Limerick winners at 323 to Tip 217.
Yeah, look, I'm going to go back to exactly what we're all just been talking about a while ago. The last time Tipperary won the All-Ireland, apart from last year under Sheedy, he had Bonner Maher one wing forward, and he had Garrow Ryan on the other wing. Two phenomenally hard working, and Benny Dunn to come on, right? If you remember back in 2010, Shane McCallan, even though he was young, he couldn't make that team, not only because they had really good inside forwards, but his work rate wasn't up to scratch. And in fairness to him, he learned through the years. Last year, Tip Bonamara was injured, but like they Dan McCormack playing wing forwards, right? They had Niall O'Mara, again, 2 workhorses. The second I saw the Tip team, now I didn't think Tip were going to win anyway. I thought Limerick by about 7 or 8. But the second I saw the Tip team at the weekend, I thought to myself, they're going to get an absolute hiding here, because I saw Jake Morris on one wing. I saw Mark Keogh. Yeah, and I said to myself, these lads are not workers. These lads are not ball winners, right? Bonner is injured. Dan McCormack was on the bench. And I said to myself, then I saw John McGrath line up at centre forward at the start. And I said to myself, who's actually going to win the ball here in this half forward line? And that's exactly how it turned out. Like, you know, and then whatever Tip we're at, what really surprised me was for Sheedy, for a man of detail, like I thought Bubbles came on, he's a bloody disgrace. Dan McCormack looked like he was carrying weight. Noel McGrath looked like he was carrying weight. So many of them look unfit. And when you're playing against Limerick, they are so well conditioned. First of all, you have to match them with pure physicality, fitness levels, and then you've got to turn on your hurling. Tip couldn't win the ball. And like, they were never, with those players, Jeff, we've said this years and years, right? When you're playing against a team like Limerick, really the only way you can beat them is if you mirror exactly what they're doing to you. And Tip, with those players, were never going to be able to mirror that work rate with the players they had on the field.
Is there any way they lost that game on purpose?
No. I heard all sorts of conspiracy theories last year after the Munster final going, oh, they lost it on purpose because they were training hard the night before, or they beat Limerick, they were never going to beat Limerick 3 times in a row, and all this other stuff. No, like,
I mean, to leave Michael Breen and Dan McCormack, who would be 2 players that are made to play against Limerick, like they're big, strong, mobile men that can win ball in the air. You look at the size of the Limerick half-back line, and they go out instead with people like Mark Keogh. I mean, Mark Keogh was for the birds last year. He was taken off in the finish after he spilled the ball, soling up the line with nobody around him, and he just dropped the ball in front of him and went back down over the bar for Limerick. And, you know, he was taken off then straight away. But, you know, and as you said, they're like Jake Morris and Mark Keogh are real summer hurlers, but they're not ball winners, and they're not suited, I don't think, to winter hurling, and they're definitely not suited to the role that they got against Limerick to be, you know, ball winners. And like when I saw how unfit looking, what's his name was the last day coming on, Bubbles then was, so he's like, I don't think there's enough time left in the championship for him to get fit, and I can't see Tipperary being able to win in All-Ireland without Bubbles being at his best, because in all the matches that they've won, they've needed Bubbles at his best. Like.
And even the dogs that were on the pitch for like Tipperary, like Paddy Murray, he was barely even in the game. I seen a stat there recently that he only missed, was it 10 minutes in the last 10 years of championship hurling, and he was taken off. I think it was in the 50-something minute against Limerick. Then
I heard there though that he hadn't trained in 3 weeks for whatever injury he was carrying, because he's the one warrior like that you can depend on, you know. So if Paddy Maher wasn't firing, it can only be injury, like, because he's a proper warrior. He's proved it like over the last probably 10 or 12 years. So yeah, apparently he hadn't trained for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
What do you think, Adam?
Well, weather was desperate, first of all. Jeez, the rain and the wind was like nothing you'd ever see. But pitch conditions were grand. So you might have thought, geez, Tipperary have a chance, because if it was muck and water on the surface, you'd say Limerick would have just been too physical and muscled them out of it. But Limerick, they stuck to their kind of passing game or run game, and just the half back line of Limerick kind of took over half forward line. We were saying Keogh there, and can't remember who else on the other wing, but there's definitely no American going on of Dear Burns. He got 3 points, I think, in the first half, and Declan Hannon as well. They were just picking out balls. So it was kind of similar to the Clare game, to be honest. They just kind of overpowered them in that part of the field, and just showed in the final score in the end.
Yeah, like I wonder, like, did Sheedy kind of fall into the Pep Guardiola mode of I'm going to pull a rabbit out of a hat here and do something totally different and try and play kind of quick, lighter fellas to run the likes of Jim Burns around. But like to me, like you with Limerick, you need like Kilkenny did it last year. You need to fight fire with fire for the first 50 minutes, and then you can unleash these speedsters out if you're in the game. But what Limerick are doing is they're blowing everyone away. But like when you're playing Limerick, your halfbacks cannot mark their half forwards because their half forwards come back into their own half. So the only people you can get to do that job is your own half forwards. So basically, what you should have is two half back lines almost free. And like you saw Polly Maher the last day, I saw Jimmy Burns get a ball at one stage and he clipped it over his shoulder 70 yards into the other corner diagonally into Galan. Doesn't like unless Polly Maher was standing on Galan, if you were 40 yards out, the sweeper null and void. So that's the great thing about you either bring your half back line all the way back in front of the full back or full forward line, you knock the ball down, or you send them out to the middle of the field. Now I wouldn't be sending them out to the middle of the field either. So like that's the chance you take. But like it's ominous because like the amount of ball that say Tom Morrissey won there in that half back line position, flipped outside Darragh Dunn into Keane Lynch over the bar, like, and then even if you do go long, like Galan caught two unbelievable balls. If you remember that hook that O'Brien got back in the last second as well, like he catching it over a guy's head, like he kind of reminds me of Tommy Welsh. He'd be able to getting over a guy who's a foot higher than him. Like they have everything. So like really, I think it's Limerick's to lose.
Like Gillane is the ultimate full forward player because even though he's not exceptionally big, he's a big man, like, but he's not all about size. He's very, very quick out to the corners to win a ball that's drilled up the line, but he's phenomenal in the air as well. And like Graham Mulcahy, you know, is so fast and out to those balls as well. Then it's like what you were saying earlier on. Playing a sweeper is redundant against good teams because they don't hit the ball up in front of the full back anymore. Like they're looking up, and if they're, you know, putting the ball up to the forwards now, they're either Limerick have the choice of putting it in the air to Gillane, and he's so good there, or they can drill it up the line. Gillane's equally good, and Graham Mulcahy is so quick out there as well. And so is Casey, even though he was pretty well marked the last day, in fairness. But and that's the problem with Limerick, like, is that they're playing, I suppose, like a Tyrone system, really. And what you said there, like they're dropping their half forwards, drop back, and they break then at such speed. And I noticed there, like they play so much ball now off the batting it off the hurleys. Like they're more so than any other team. They have to be doing drills and training to work on that, where it's all running and short, like 5 little flicks off the hurley and running on. And they just run at a team with men in support. And, you know, you're caught unawares, really. And they're so good at it now, like, that they'll just open you and take those points. And, you know, they're as we said before, when we was talking about how would you stop the blanket defence in football, it's the same in this now. I think, like, there's half forward lines have to drop back and set up a mass defence in their own half of the field, really, like. And because Limerick then are so, you know, first of all, intelligent, I suppose, like that when you do that, there's loads of space up front, and they're very, very good at hitting good ball into their forwards. And that's their tactic, and that's a hell of a good tactic.
Do you think you wouldn't normally see Galan in the edge of the square, like lobbing high ball into him? Do you think they should do that more?
No, because I think they become too predictable then. Like, they want to, trust me, they want to hit Galan one-on-one against you, but they have to suck you out first. And they do that they suck you out by hitting those long-range points at the very start of the game. Then you're kind of caught between two minds of, like, you know, if you're a sweeper, say, and a centre forward goes out, like Keane Lynch the other day, and he hits 2 in a row, in your mind, you know you should stay back, but actually your first instinct is, I better go out and mark him, because if he scores another one, I'm going to be called off here. And the second you then come out, or you come forward 10 yards, the next ball goes in on top of Galan and into the paw, bang. done. Like that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to suck you out. Kilkenny did it for years to everyone. And like they had unbelievable ball wearers up front. And I think Limerick have just brought this on another level just with their half forwards dropping even further back.
I suppose with Limerick and Waterford both being fine, you could probably say the two most hard-working teams in Ireland at the moment. But I suppose we can all only see it going one way.
Waterford, yeah.
Well, you called the footballers last week, Adam.
I called the Hurling right last week as well, yeah.
That's actually true. That is true.
Yeah, I don't know if they did the handicap betting. Like, what's the spread?
+6. It's +6, 4 to 5, I think.
Yeah, I probably get slaughtered for saying this now, but I couldn't see Waterford coming within 6 points of Limerick. I hope I'm wrong, like, but you know.
Yeah, I think Waterford will work very hard, but the thing I can go on is in the last 2 games they played them. I watched them in the league there in early March or late February, and I saw them play in the championship last summer, and in both games, Limerick just blew them away physically. Now, I think Waterford have improved since then. I think they got to know the system a lot better this year, especially over the last 2-3 months. But I think they'll give a good, honest account of themselves. But I don't see. I'd be shocked if they're within 6 points.
What did you think of the Limerick tactic? Playing Kyle Hayes at wing back the last day was a real, bolt out of the blue, I suppose, really.
He won under 21 All Ireland at centre back, did he?
Yeah. Yeah, he'd be known as a half back at the county level before a couple of years ago. I think the big thing was, for me, when they pushed Cian Lynch up, I'd say it was more about like Kyle could play there, and like you've Donovan in the middle of the field and with William O'Donoghue, both natural midfielders anyway. And then, but like it was Cian Lynch running at either Ronan or Pádraig Maher. I'd say Limerick have looked at him and thought, look, their legs are gone for that level of, with a guy that quick taking you on, he's going to cause massive bother. And I don't think Kyle Hayes would have that fleet of foot that Cian Lynch did, and it was proved right. I thought like Cian Lynch was unbelievable as well.
And then it makes it very difficult to put ball down on Kyle Hayes because I think he's 6'7". Like he's an absolute monster of a man and good in the air. So that means there's if Cian Lynch is on one side and Hannon's a huge man and Dermot Byrne over on the other side, I mean, it makes it very difficult to go looking for your half forward line from the puckouts. So what are you doing with your puckouts then? It's strengthened Limerick and it's really given them.
So Adam, I'll get your opinion now on Waterford versus Limerick. Fine.
To be honest, I probably couldn't see Waterford win. I'd tip Limerick to win it, but if Waterford can play the way they did last day, play lovely kind of free flow and hurling, and they were good up around the half back line. But to be honest, with Limerick's players, I don't think they'll be allowed to win that same amount of ball or just have as much time on the ball as they did against Cork. So I'd predict Limerick will win, yeah.
All right, so we'll move on to the Leinster Championship now. We'll start off with Kilkenny versus Dublin, which finished 3-20 to Kilkenny to 2-22 for Dublin.
Well, I suppose when I want to know anything about Kilkenny, I saw a good bit of it, but when I want to know it, I go straight to Mr. O'Neill, and like he would be forensically looking at these matches, and as he said to me, Kilkenny played 15-on-15 against Dublin, and they just went to town in Dublin. Now, I thought Kilkenny had learned over the last couple of years, a bit like Cork, but even when I saw it myself, when I saw that Dublin put back the sweeper, time and time again, Kilkenny just lumped ball down on top of the sweeper and were able to work the ball up the field. Now, I think there's going to be an awful lot of improvement in Kilkenny because their club championship, remember as well, in Kilkenny, there's literally no such thing as sweepers. They literally go 15-on-15 and they go at each other. So I think that's an adjustment that Kilkenny have to make. And I think they will make it. Whether they can compete at the top level against the likes of Limerick, I'm not too sure. But I still give them the best chance of beating Limerick in my eyes, because they can match the physicality. Like Kilkenny, they were so far ahead when the tide turned. Even when I was watching, did I ever feel like Dublin were going to win the game? Oh, maybe with 3 or 4 minutes to go, but then Kilkenny just upped another gear and we're gone again. So look, Kilkenny, the one thing, if you saw their bench the last day, I made it out they had nearly 7 starters from last year sitting on the bench. And it'll be interesting to see how their team evolves over the next couple of weeks. Maybe Richie Hogan comes back in or Jerry Aylward comes back in. But I think for a lot of those Kilkenny lads, this is their last year. And I think they're going to see a lot of freshness in that panel next year. So will they beat Galway? I'd give them a very good chance of beating Galway, because I think Wexford were so poor the last day. And Galway would play pretty much 15 on 15. I would give Kilkenny a very good chance of beating them.
At that match, you'd probably would have said it was over at half time. And I know Dublin made a few changes at half time. They brought on, Aim Dillon. But Kilkenny must have, I don't know, they must have just had a serious kind of lapse in concentration to let them get back into it like that.
And you wouldn't expect that from the likes of Kilkenny, where you feel like once they get ahead of you, they're gone.
Yeah.
Cody wasn't too happy about it, and he had the funniest comment ever when he said this. There'd be none of the backs would need any contact tracing because they didn't come within 2 meters of the Dublin forwards during the second half. Kilkenny just seemed to be running out of real top quality talent to come in there at the moment. There doesn't seem to be like a young TJ or a young Henry or a young Tommy Welch or whatever. They just seem to have ordinary players for the first time in 15 or 20 years. Like at the moment, it's great as a Corkman to see them coming back to us rather than us closing the gap. But even though on any given day they could put it up to a team, I think the only team that could stop Limerick this year is Galway, maybe for the athleticism they have. And that, is it Fionn or Finn Burke, that fullback, was phenomenal for Galway.
Finton, is it?
Finton, yeah.
He was absolutely outstanding altogether. And I don't know what the story is with Dahi Burke coming back, but they seem to have a couple of new players there. And you see Colcannon or whatever, the corner forward, another absolutely class act altogether. Big, mobile, young lad that can win ball and run and score and everything. And if anyone's going to put it up to Limerick, I think it'll be Galway.
And Conor Whelan looks like he's turned into one of the best hurlers in the country. And I don't know how old he is, but he's young enough anyway.
Yeah, I think he's probably 24 or 5. I've been saying to Shane there, he's my favourite player in the country with the last 3 or 4 years in terms of striking and balance and his athleticism. I think, I love watching him. I think he's an absolute joy to watch. But unfortunately, he didn't always deliver in the big day. Down through the years, he has not had the best of outings when the pressure is on. But he seems to be delivering this year. And it's a funny thing, really, but you'd wonder is for a couple of players there that might struggle with the big occasion, does the lack of the crowd really suit those players? Because I wouldn't say there's anywhere close to the same pressure to perform in front of an empty stadium as there is when there's 50, 70, 80,000 people screaming in.
It definitely would help if you're a young player coming in, instead of playing in front of 80,000, just playing like a normal match, like a normal club match or a normal challenge match. Not challenge match really, but there's definitely not as much pressure on you to perform on the big day without the crowd.
You might look at the downfall of Wexford against Galway, and Dave Fitz was very animated and he's very disappointed himself, I think.
Yeah, well, to me, this was I expected I expected obviously Tip to lose to Limerick. The Cork game, you look, Waterford were always going to be thereabouts, whether you call it one or the other. But Wexford to be absolutely annihilated by Galway was the biggest shock. I couldn't understand how Galway were basically massive favourites going into the game in Wexford. I expected Wexford to win. They just gave up. Now, I'm going to say this here. I'm not convinced by Galway just yet, because I've seen over the last couple of years, and Kilcannon in the corner, I've seen him barely strike a ball on a given day. Jason Flynn to me has had more chances, and he still keeps coming back and back. Cooney, the two Coonies on the wings were poor the last couple of years since they won the All-Ireland. I think a big one for me was one of my favourite players on the Galway team was Pádraig Mannion, and his move to midfield really gives them impetus and drive from the middle of the field. And then, if you give Cahill enough ball, he's probably one of the sweetest strikers on the ball in the country. But again, if you tie him up, where are their scores coming from? Now, a good thing for Galway at the weekend was that Joe actually, did he even score from play? Or did he get a point near the end? I don't think he scored from play. But he's a good provider and he's a good ball winner. But are the scores going to be available to them when they come up against a top team? And I'm not even go to Kilkenny. Kilkenny are going to provide them a space. Galway will want to play 15 on 15. So will Kilkenny. So that's going to be an awful lot different. And again, we said it earlier on, Wexford played the sweeper back in front. Billy would always say, he hates the sweeper. But it hasn't translated into more goals. It's just translated into more scores from long range. And the big thing is Galway if you remember when they beat Waterford in that All-Ireland in 2017, they never even looked like scoring a goal. But they hit 20-odd points from the middle of the field. That was the big difference. If they can do that, they have a chance. But I have a feeling that Kilkenny are going to win this game.
Yeah, I suppose I agree with you now. Adam, what do you think?
It's a tough one to be called, to be honest. I thought Wexford and Galway would be a close match, but Wexford didn't look up for it at all, really, and Galway kind of dominated, especially in the second half there. But I suppose Galway will be they'll probably have better, more natural hurlers maybe, and Kilkenny will probably be trying to bring him in and fight with him and scrap with him and just make it tough for them to hurl. To be honest, I'd say the weather conditions could play a lot. Say if it was rain or something, I'd say that'd be ideal for Kilkenny. I'm going to pick Kilkenny now. I just think Colin Fennelly and TJ Reid I think he was in full forward last day, first half, and he was doing wicked damage. So he was. So yeah, I'll pick Kilkenny now.
Yeah, I think I'll buck the trend here, and I'm going to go with Galway. I remember messaging you, Shane, before the Wexford game, and I said that I thought Galway have more natural hurlers than Wexford, and that the interruption to the training, I think Wexford were very dependent on a system, and the lockdown then definitely interrupted their preparation of the system and this supposed 12 different systems that they can play and transition to during a game and all that, and whereas Galway are a bit like the old Kilkenny, really, in that they don't delay, they just deliver ball into the forwards, and they expect the forwards to be able to win the ball, and they have got a couple of quick players there Concannon and Whelan that can get out and win the ball that's put up to the line into the corner. And they can win a bit of ball in the air as well, though I do agree with you. I wouldn't have Jason Flynn starting against Kilkenny in a million years, because I think he's an impact sub for teams like that, because he struggles to get into the game, when the going is really tough in the first 30 minutes. But at the same time, I think Kilkenny are on the way backwards, and they're coming back to the herd. And I just think that Galway, they have a good fullback. McInerney is very good at centre back. The Mannions, super players. I just think that, and there seems to be no expectation or pressure on Galway. So I do fancy them to win Leinster and go further.
And James, Jeff Collins. I'm saying Jeff Collins. He's the Buff Egan of St. Declan's. Himself and Buff are tipping Galway all the way.
Too controversial, meant to say the
we
least.
should actually tag Buff in this and ask him will he come on. I'd love to have him on this podcast. It'd be phenomenal. There's a job for you, Adam, there later on.
Oh, jeez, right. I'd say he'd be definitely up for it now.
Hey, why not? Anyone's allowed to come. James, what do you think?
I have a feeling it'd be a very good game. I'd say Cody would have Kilkenny fired up to the very last, but I'd probably go with Galway maybe by 2 or 3 points myself anyway. So we'll move on to the qualifiers. We'll just look at quick predictions. We'll go with Dublin and Cork first.
Well, I think Cork are going to bounce back. It won't suit them again against Dublin because Dublin are a big physical team. But I still think there's enough from that Cork team to G themselves up to get back into the race. And you know what? They will be dangerous because even though they have a lot of shortcomings, people forget that Limerick barely scraped over the line against Cork when they won the All-Ireland a couple of years ago. Cork always have big game left in them. They can beat anyone on their day. Now, the weather is going to be a huge factor, but I still think Cork will have enough this weekend. It would be a shock, a massive shock to me if Cork couldn't pull it out of the bag to move into the next round.
I'd say you were talking about Kilkenny being fired up for it, but I'd say Cork would have got a fierce giving out after the Waterford match there, and I do think they'd have too much for Dublin, and I do think they'd better hurdlers, but Dublin aren't bad now, and I could see them making a close match, but I would predict Cork as well, yeah.
I'll go with Cork as well, tentatively, but it's based more on the heart than the head, and it is hard to evaluate, like, when Dublin were down so much against Kilkenny at half-time, was that the real Dublin, or was it the Dublin that came out in the second half and brought it back to that point? So it's hard to know which is the real Dublin. But, you know, Cork might get over Dublin, yeah, but I couldn't see. The amazing thing is, the one team Cork are guaranteed to play well against is Limerick. They're about the only team that have a good record against this Limerick team at the moment, and that they've performed very well against them on a few occasions. But yeah, I'm going to go with a tentative Cork vote.
Yeah, I'd say I'll have to go with Cork myself now, but I can see it being a very good game over the weekend. So the last game is Laois versus Clare.
Yeah, look, this is one game which I'd say people are going to struggle to watch. Clare are going to win this. I think Laois, it must break Eddie Brennan's heart. I think he's missing 7 of the team that played last year and beat Dublin. Clare, to me, unless something drastically happens, this is the end of the road for Clare, so they might as well go enjoy their game of the weekend, try and win it, because like whoever gets tip and whoever, especially Wexford, I actually, like, if Limerick were playing Wexford next week, I'd nearly have money on Wexford. They'll be ravenous after that performance the weekend. Like, another thing about Wexford is they've been going really well. From what I hear, they've been going really well in challenge games coming up to that point, and I suppose it just fell flat, didn't turn up. So there is a good team in there, and there is a very fit team in there. And I think that whoever they play next are going to feel the brunt of that. But look, does Clare going to win? I'd say handy enough the weekend, and then I'd say it could be bye-bye to Clare after that.
Yeah, in a similar way to Cork, I wouldn't rate Clare that highly, but I do think they're better than Laois. Laois have come on a lot in the last few years, but they're still kind of one step away, I suppose, from the top level or beating one of the top teams. I'd say Clare will win, but I couldn't see them going any further in this.
Is Jeff Collins still there?
I said, oh yeah, I'll Clare by a cricket score, yeah. Clare by 9 or 10 points or more.
Yeah, I'd say I'm going to go with that myself, but I think it'll be close enough starting. Laois will be fired up a bit, but I'd say just throughout the game, Clare will edge it and go further and further away from Laois. Thanks to all my guests for joining me tonight. Tomorrow we have ladies footballer Rebecca Casey to talk to us about her career to date and the upcoming ladies football championship. Hit the subscribe button and we'll see you soon. Thank you.